Hi, everybody. Welcome to Friday. We made it. Next week's a holiday, so short week. Actually, this was a short week too. I think that's what's me also throwing everybody off. So as always, we're going to start with an icebreaker. We're super excited today to welcome Nellie as well. And so if we could remember today to talk about our position here, so that folks can also learn who Nellie is and what she does with us, that would be great. So our icebreaker question today, Nellie pointed out that summer solstice is upon us. So go back to your graduation and you're getting a gap year, fully funded gap. Well, we'll say gap summer, fully funded gap summer. Where are you going? Where are you traveling to? What are you doing? Your dream gap summer. Money is no object.
At that time for me, I always wanted to go to Ireland, so I would have traveled Ireland.
Is there something specific there you wanted to see, Sam, or just?
I just love the music, the culture, I don't know, it was just always calling me.
I love that for you. Sounds fun. I picture you like in a car stuck on a road because like the sheep are crossing or something in the middle of nowhere. I'm not gonna lie.
Those roads are scary, even if there aren't sheeps in it.
Who else?
Okay, because you said, oh, sorry, Mauricio. I was just gonna say, because you said money's no object, my head went immediately to Bora Bora. I'd be on one of those little huts over the water, enjoying life.
Impressive. I love it. All right, Melissa, what do you got for us?
I'm so next year I'm supposed to be going on a Mediterranean cruise, so I would do that early. But I will do that through flights and I'll fly through Europe. I'll do Italy for a couple of weeks. I will do Paris and I'll just try to suck that in for the summertime. Eat up all the foods.
I was just gonna ask if you're eating your way. I love that. I hear like the little, what are they, like the little courtyards or whatever in Europe? They're awesome. Who else?
I would do something similar. We had taken our senior class trip to, excuse me, France, Italy, and Spain right before I graduated. And I just felt like I didn't get to see enough. And it was like a school trip, it was phenomenal. Don't get me wrong. But since then I've gone back to each of those countries. So at that time, had you asked me, I would have gone back and done that all again. But like done it like Melissa is saying, like at my own pace and a little bit like slower and do what I wanted as opposed to, like the strict schedule you have when you're on like a senior class trip like that.
Did you eat your way through when you went back?
Oh, 1000%. 1000%. I mean, yeah, yeah, that's all you do. I mean, let's be honest, is you just everywhere you go, there's food, there's gelato, there's a cafe, like you just sit, you eat. It's phenomenal, really.
Okay. You guys might be making me change my answer. Good morning, Lauren. I hear you had some technical issues. So the question is, you're getting an all expense paid summer gap year. You just graduated. Where are you going? What are you doing?
Um, so we're talking
This is back then.
See, I'm not fun and exciting like everybody else because I only ever use vacations to visit family. So
I don't know why that's not fun and exciting.
if this was however many years ago that is now, I would probably spend probably a year with my grandmother in North Carolina.
So sweet. I love that.
Yeah.
Who else?
I would probably do the same, just go back to Mexico and spend time with my family.
I had no idea you had family in Mexico, Ellie.
I was born there, but I was raised here. So
I love that. Good for you. I hope it's a safe part of Mexico. We don't want you to not come back.
I mean, you know, everywhere has this bad area. So I know my family knows how to travel. So I trust them completely. Just as long as it's not too late at night and, you know, I'll be okay.
Very fair. Very fair. Who else? Emma, Michelle?
I would probably choose Greece because, especially because I feel like it's a little bit pricier. I don't know. That's at least what I've heard, but money was no object. I would love to go there and spend the summer. I feel like it would be very nice experience.
Emma's coming back with someone named, like, I can't think of a Greek name, but there's some really cool Greek names, guys. Brittany, Michelle?
I wouldn't mind going to like Spain.
Mhm.
However, I think I would gravitate to going to Puerto Rico.
You love it there.
hmm I mean, family and the culture. I mean, just all of it. Just tour the island completely.
Don't forget your sunscreen, Michelle.
Of course, I'd be a lobster, burnt up lobster.
So I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little torn. I mean, I'm sort of with Nellie. I'm going to an island somewhere. I'm living my best life, just laying by the ocean, laying by the pool, reading my books. But the other part of me thinks that I want to do something like with animals, like with the elephants, with the monkeys, whatever. So I'm a little torn. I'm not sure.
African safari.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I think I might want to do something adventurous. I'm a little torn. All right. Did I miss anybody? Oh, I miss Brittany. Brittany, where are you going? What are you doing?
You guys all snitched on me. It's okay though. I am going to the Caribbean. If I have to spend a whole year, I'm going somewhere that's always warm. And I will jump from island to island. Paris gets cold. Europe, I'm not, that's too much for me. Going somewhere that's on the equator. Just so I would island hop in the Caribbean. There's enough islands to just every month do a different one.
Now there's an idea, island hop, so that you still see things, right? Like the Europe thing, you're seeing different things. Brittany's always got unique ideas.
I actually was gonna say the same thing. That was my second choice. So I'm here for that. I feel like it would be so relaxing and you'd be warm all the time. You could just sit on the beach.
Emma's bringing a full suitcase of her own books.
And there's good food. So
Very
win-win.
true. All right. Well, thank you all. Now that we're all going to get off this call and book a plane ticket, we can't all use PTO in the same week. We've got to stagger. So today we are going to talk about the difference between disagreement and conflict. So I'm curious, your perception or your definition, what is the difference between a disagreement or argument and a conflict?
I think for me, the difference is primarily the level of emotionality involved. Like when I think of a disagreement versus a conflict, I think of one that has higher level of emotionality versus one where it's typically like, yeah, we're disagreeing, but like we can agree to disagree, no big deal. Where the other one is more, nobody's in a space to just agree to disagree.
Thanks, Mariah. Anybody else?
I think a disagreement is more so a difference of opinion. Sometimes, you might see something one way, the other person might see another way, but like Mariah said, you can agree to disagree. Whereas conflict is no one is seeing the other side, no one can understand the other person's feelings, and it can evolve into maybe a fight.
I like that. Thank you, Melissa. So some questions. If you can relate to this, you can you can just raise your hand in your little Hollywood square. I prefer to avoid conflict, to keep the peace. Does that resonate with any of you? Okay. Michelle, I don't know, like, is this like, are you on a boat? Because you're just kind of like swaying back and forth there. What's going on? Or are you still debating? Are you conflicted within yourself?
I think sometimes it just depends on my view and that person's view. And, sometimes again, it all depends.
Okay. So it depends on the situation for you, if you agree or disagree with that one. Okay. I like to make my point. When I feel right about something, the other person will know. Resonate? Oh, Samantha just jumped on your boat, Michelle. All right. We have some people. Nobody's totally agreeing with that one. Nobody's totally feeling that one, but some people are. Oh, Melicia's.
No, I think, you know what I think that is? I think that comment comes from a more immature standpoint.
Okay.
I think the older you are, you can agree to disagree, but the younger you are, I know what I'm talking about. I'm 100% certain. I know I'm right. I think that's more something that you get a lot. Some adults are still that way, but you get a lot from teenagers.
Oh, Melissa, that was very mature. Conflict is a normal part of life. That resonates for a lot of you. Okay. Conflict makes me feel upset. All right, that's a mixed bag there. I think it's okay for youth or teenager to disagree with me. All right, that one seems to be pretty unanimous. All right, would you say we talked about backtrack. We talked about the difference between arguments and conflicts. What for our youth, when we have a conflict with them, what are the benefits?
I believe that in the event that there's a conflict, there can be a lesson learned from the conflict. So if you can bring it back to a place where you guys can have a conversation, then both of you guys can learn something from the conflict. So even if it escalates, because you still can learn something from the conflict.
So once the conflict de-escalates and now you're in that disagreement and processing stage, it's an opportunity for learning.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I also think too, there's even an opportunity for learning in the conflict, perhaps not in that moment, obviously, like Melissa is saying, you're too heated, you're not going to learn anything, but there is opportunity after a conflict for some self-reflection around, what triggered me? How did I manage my emotions? How could I manage my emotions better? What do I need to do differently? Some of that can take place after a conflict. Again, like Melissa said, after, separate from in the moment, but there's that piece of learning too.
Yeah, and piggybacking off of that, also with conflict, when in the after, it's also great for youth and for the adults as well to learn also the communication style that took place and what's the best way next time I can try to get what I was feeling or what I was thinking in that moment across in a better way so that other person can hear me. A lot of times with the conflict and the disagreement and what you're asking before, like I have to have my point and have it said so it's heard. We don't always take into account everyone else's approach and what they're bringing to the table to hear it differently. I always joke with my family, like my husband can tell me anything. I hear him 100%. I don't read into it. But if my sister told it to me, it'd be on. So it's always learning how you're communicating with different people in your life so that you're learning how those different communication styles.
Yeah, I love that example, Nellie, that, you know, your communication styles or how you receive things does differ between people. And it's important for you to recognize that, right? I'm going to share my screen really quick. I'm going to try, guys. We all know how excellent I do at this. So this is some tips from the video we all watch on how we can communicate during disagreements. And I just want to take a minute to talk about all of them. Do any of these particularly resonate with you? Do you feel that any, when you're in sessions, when you're doing your FFT work with families, do you feel that any of these are particularly important? Do you feel that any of these are skills that are harder for families to use? Whether it's the youth or the adult. Just, again, I wanted to just take a minute to talk about all the different sides of these. So I'll give you a second to read them. Do you feel like you emphasize one more than the other in working with families? In your own life?
I think all of these come into play when during a session. And I think you know, I think either all of these or some of these can be a little tough, but as long as they're, you know, bringing, you know, as a therapist, just going in there and having them, you know, see each other's perspective can make it a little easier to perhaps, you know, listen, don't judge. Why? Because we're so fast to just, if a youth or anybody else, right, says something that we disagree with, we're so quick to, you know, to say something. So instead, just, you know, taking a step back and just listening to why maybe that is why they think the way they do. You know, giving choices could be hard, right? Coming to a solution, right? Coming to that solving, you know, taking the steps to come to a solution can be a little difficult. But, you know, when there's a good medium, right? So the youth says this, the foster parent says this, you know, there's something in between that's going to work for both of them. It may not be the easiest to go, but I think all of these can at least come into play during a session.
Yeah, Ellie, you talked about giving choices, and you know, as I was reading this and I was watching this video, it's interesting to me because one of the things when we do the pre-service and we talk to foster parents, we always talk about giving choices, and I always viewed giving choices as sort of a precursor to avoiding the conflict, helping the youth feel empowered, that they haven't had a lot of choice throughout their life, particularly in the situation they find themselves in, right? It's a lot of, you know, foster youth didn't ask to be in foster care. And there's a lot of adults around them making these decisions for them. They've got DCF social workers, they've got their teachers, they've got us, they've got, you know, the judge, all of that kind of stuff. And so I always viewed giving choices as, listen, you have to brush your teeth, but do you want to do it before you shower or after your shower, right? That's a very simplified example, obviously. But, you know, just giving choices as often as we can as a precursor to avoiding some of these conflicts. And to see it here as a way to resolve a conflict or a disagreement made me sort of relook at things. Anybody else on any of these? How do you feel our families do in coming to an agreement? That whole agree to disagree and kind of coming to the middle and moving forward.
I think it's typically pretty difficult initially, but I think that's just human nature. People have set expectations or whatever set rules, and it's difficult to compromise and adjust. And again, sometimes the kids we work with, I adore them, but their, suggestions can be a little outlandish and crazy. And so I think initially it can be difficult to work through to get to the place where there is some compromise on both sides, right? Around what the solution is going to be, what the agreement is going to be, what are we going to agree to disagree on? But I think it's one of those things that, at least in my experience, when I've seen a family kind of work through it the first time, it gets easier and easier every time. And everybody kind of gets a little bit more well versed in what that process is going to look like. And there's a little bit more hope that, okay, we can come to an agreement at some point, even if it's not what I originally wanted or what they originally wanted, we can find this agreement.
Mariah, I think you bring up a really good point, right? That this is hard, particularly the first time, but like everything we do with practice, it gets a little bit easier. And so that kind of leads me to my next topic, thought, question. Do we need to pick every battle? Should everything that we don't view the same way become a conflict or disagreement?
No, I think some things you do have to let go and maybe revisit it a later date. And sometimes it could be more so a suggestion rather than you just, putting how you feel on something. Cause I think that's where the conflict arises, is that sometimes people put their own emotions, own opinion into things, about how they feel about it. And that may not necessarily be the way that other person feels. So I think that definitely, some things you can pick your battle with, like, some perfect example, teenagers are messy. Rooms are not always clean. But let's just say the area where the common areas of the house is kept neatly, but the room is a mess. That's something that you can pick your battle with. Okay, I would like your room to be cleaner, but if you can, maybe on the weekends, try to pick some stuff off the floor. Give some choices, some suggestions, as opposed to saying this has to look this way every day. I think that creates conflict.
I love that, Melissa. Go ahead, Mariah.
One of my favorite phrases to use with some of the foster parents that I work with is this the hill you really want to die on? Is this really the hill that you want to die on? Is this worth pushing forward? Is this the hill you want to die on? And while that phrase is entertaining at best, I think it highlights what Melissa is saying. Is this really worth it? Like, I get it. I get that the clothes are, falling out of the hamper, but throughout the week, is that really the hill you want to die on? Or is it, hey, on the weekend, you got to do your laundry before you can go out, as opposed to an everyday fight? Is that the hill you want to die on? So that's a phrase I tend to use a lot to just help everybody kind of regroup a little bit and really stop and think, is this worth turning this into a conflict?
And Mariah, I think you just brought up a really good point, right? Like every day, this could become a thing every day if we let it. And do we as adults, as caretakers, as humans have the energy for it every day? And so how do we decide where we are emotionally to figure out, can we do this every day? And Brittany, I see you shaking your head.
I'm just agreeing with everyone.
Brittany doesn't have the energy for this today.
It's not that. I just didn't want to repeat anything that was already said.
Sorry, I was just being funny. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to pick on you. So I'm also wondering, some of these topics can be super serious, right? Very intense. Is there a way to have fun conversations around these difficult topics? is there a way to engage a youth in a fun conversation before or after these difficult conversations? And what do some of those fun conversations look like?
Sometimes you might have a youth who is dating, have a girlfriend, a boyfriend, and sometimes you can say, I've said stuff like, would you bring your girlfriend here? You know what I mean? If the place is messy or something like that. And sometimes you get a laugh because they're like, of course they in that moment they might clean up because they're having company or something like that. So just to encourage, like, maybe you need to keep this room a little neater. You know what I mean? Or do you think that this is would you have a date here? Stuff like that. And it might bring on a little laughter or whatever. And then they'll probably go ahead and start cleaning up their room. But just to throw it out there to give them another idea of how to see things. Would this be a place that you want other people to see? Would this be comfortable for you to take someone for a date? And a lot of times they laugh about it, but then they realize what you're saying and how you can feel about it.
That's great, Melissa. I love that. Would you want someone else to see this? I just, Melissa, you don't have to answer this, but you go for the dirty room a whole lot. I'm just wondering if that's like a thing on your caseload in your life, your personal life, or like, was that a thing between you and your caretaker when you were
So I use a dirty room because I think that happens a lot with youth, with teenagers, that I've seen in foster care. And some foster parents are very like sticklers when it comes to being clean and cleanliness. And so I've went into multiple homes where that's always an argument. They don't clean their room. Their room is a mess. Go check out the room. The room is a mess. And that's something that we get a lot. I've had that on multiple caseloads where, and sometimes the kids lock you out the room when they know you're going to go and do the walkthrough. So I've had that a lot. So that's why I mentioned that, because it's one of those things that you kind of have to pick your battles with. We've had to tell foster families, this is a teenager. 9 times out of 10, the room might be nasty. Maybe pick a day out of the week to clean it up. But I ask those questions on purpose because a lot of times they will clean up when they know they're having company. Or if they're a person who don't keep themselves up, they will keep themselves up when they know they're going to go out on a date or they're going to have company. So when I see that, I usually I use that as encouragement to let them know, would you let that person see you like this? Do you think this is a nice place to date? And a lot of times they realize, okay, maybe I should clean this up.
I'm sorry, I just got a picture of Melissa being locked out of the kids' room. Sorry.
They usually run up and be like, oh, no, I'm gonna clean now. So I get that a lot. I've had that on multiple walkthroughs.
Or we do the 5-minute rule.
Exactly. See,
where we sit when we're talking to foster mom and I go, I got to see your room. So you get 5 minutes. Go ahead. So that helps too.
Brittany, have you been locked out of rooms too?
I've not been locked out of rooms, but I strongly suggest the 5-minute rule, just so that we're not walking in on stepping on any unclean clothes or anything. And that has helped with room cleanliness. But it also just gives foster mom and them an understanding, they can clean, if they can clean their room, or if this is a life skill that we need to teach. So we also need to understand that some of the kids who come into foster care, a lot of times they weren't given those foundational skills. So maybe it's hey, this is how the room should look. Put your clothes here, sweep the floor, hang up your clothes over here. And it sounds something that's simple, and a lot of foster moms do or a lot of foster parents, I should say, not just foster moms. They say like, they should know this. They're a teenager, but sometimes those skills weren't taught. So the 5-minute thing also helps, because when we go upstairs, we're like, okay, so either you know how to clean, and this is just kind of like a disagreement that you guys are having, or if this is an actual life skill that we kind of need to review and go over for you.
Yeah, and Brittany, you're bringing up a good point, and I think it's not just room cleaning, right? If we expand that, it could be hygiene, it could be basic kitchen etiquette and cooking. It could extend to a lot of things. And while we assume that someone who's lived with us their entire lives would have these skills, or that we had them when we were that age, to your point, someone coming to us, that might not have been something that they ever had the opportunity to, or that just wasn't a focus. So that's a really, really good point. And your 5-minute rule is great, because I think it also shows that if there's some motivation, the youth is willing to. Mariah, were you going to jump in?
I was just going to confirm that I've not been locked out of the room, but I have gotten the walk in the house and they see me and don't say hi and immediately go to the bedroom and shut the door. And I'm like, all right, I'll chat with you in a few minutes. Let me know when you're ready. That's what I've gotten before.
So it's not just me. It's not just me, Mariah. I don't feel so bad about it.
Oh my gosh, this is hilarious, guys. Okay. So with this, how can we as workers, but also our foster parents, how can we be role models for our kids? We've talked about communication skills, we've talked about emotionality, we've talked about agreeing to disagree, picking our battles. How can we be role models for the youth?
Maybe not so much taking a side. I think that sometimes the little parent in us come out and it's like, clean your room. Like, stop playing, clean your room. This is a mess. You know what I mean? So a lot of times the little parent comes out where you forget that you should be, you know what I mean? Like, you should be playing that part where you're in the middle and kind of trying to diffuse it. Sometimes the little parent comes out in you where you more so want to correct the action right away. But I think that what we can do is more so try to foster the communication, as opposed to letting, this is what you should be doing. It should be like, let's talk about how we can make this better.
Yeah, so trying to resist that urge in you to be like, come on now. Other ways that adults can be role models. For me, one of the biggest things, I mean, I'm human. I lose my cool sometimes. I snap. I say things. Maybe I can't say that it's not that I don't mean them, but I could have said them in a much more polite way. And I think so for me, it's going back and apologizing and talking about that I wasn't in a place to have that conversation. I needed to ask for space, and let's have that conversation again. So it's apologizing and owning my mistakes.
I don't know. I don't know if this is so, oh, sorry, whoever I just cut off. I don't know if this is so much being a role model, but I also think sometimes it's helpful for us to just provide that validation to everybody around. Like, this is hard. This is hard. These are tough topics. These are things that people are passionate about. So of course you're going to get angry, or of course you're going to get upset. How can we manage that when you do? Because this is hard. This is difficult to have to compromise and figure out how to meet in the middle. So sometimes I think just that providing that validation and just acknowledging, like, it's okay that this isn't easy, can be a helpful way to support in those moments.
I was gonna say,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Sorry. No,
No,
Ellie, go, please.
I was just gonna say, just also, just saying, hey, let's do it together. Let's see how we can work together. And going back to what Brittany said, right? Sometimes they don't have those life skills. So let's do it together. Let me show you how I do it. You can do it your own way, but let's do it together. Or let me teach you how to use the washing machine, or this is the way I do it, but you want to do it. So it's just also, that's the way we can also model with our kids, just by doing things together and letting them see and letting them watch, and then they'll get their own, their own way of doing things.
Okay, so I'm actually going to circle back to the very beginning, and I'm going to put Nellie on the spot because I realized that we didn't talk about who she was, why she's joined us, what her position is. And so, Nellie, I'd love us to wrap up today with you talking a little bit about your role here. And I would love for you to share what you enjoy working with youth and families the most with. So a huge welcome to Nellie, and I'm going to turn it over to her.
Way to put me on the spot with no warning.
I'm throwing you under the bus, Nellie, and we're driving back over you too.
So yes, hello to everyone. I'm Nellie Bush. I'm the clinical director for FFT. A big part of the role, as I'm seeing it as it's developing, is kind of overseeing the whole program and how it's functioning, the good things, the bad things, trying to strengthen a lot of those pieces, and advocate for both the staff as well as the youth and the families that we're working with. A huge part of why I ever came into social work is children. I love children. I love working with kids. I've learned through the years that teenagers are my jam. I love teenagers. They're spicy and they keep they keep things fresh. And because I always found for myself, especially as a teen, not having that voice, not being able to speak up. So I love being able to work with youth and families and helping them find their voice in a way that families and adults around them can hear them better. Because that was always, it was something I felt deeply growing up, and I saw around me as well. Some of my earlier experiences in child welfare, working with kids, was with homicide victims, youth that had unfortunately seen someone close in their family killed. And it was working through them coming out of their shell and growing from that trauma to be able to feel safe and feel connected to others around them. And especially working with Latin families that it wasn't their first language, and helping them find ways to advocate and get the community resources that they needed. So that being said, I love this work because it's about connecting, getting people connected, getting resources connected, and helping people, whether young and old, find ways that they can remain connected and be support resources for each other as well. So that's that in a nutshell.
And we're so excited to have Nellie aboard. I almost said abroad because I'm sending you off on that summer, all expense paid summer vacation I offered in the beginning. So we're so excited, and welcome, and thanks everybody. And we'll see you next month.